Hi, this is Chris Smith with Local Joe's. At Local Joe's, we help local business. Hi, this is Chris Smith with Local Joe's.
This is City Pulse Newsmakers, a weekly look at the issues and the people behind them in Greater Lansing. Brought to you by City Pulse, Lansing's weekly alternative newspaper. And now, here's your host, City Pulse publisher, Burl Schwartz.
Good morning. The Lansing primary election is on August 4th, and this week and next week we're going to talk to the candidates for City Council. With us are Aylin Bowles, who is seeking re-election from the 3rd Ward. Welcome, Aylin. And 3 of the 5 at-large candidates, Emily Devendorf, Mary Ann Prince, and Patricia Spitzley. Welcome to all of you as well.
Thank you.
Aylin, I'd like to start with you, but have each of you take about a minute or so to tell us about your personal and political and professional backgrounds.
Sure. Thank you, Burl, for having us here today. I'm glad to be here. I am up for re-election for 3rd Ward, Lansing, which is our southwest end of the city. This would be my 3rd term. I have had the distinct honor and privilege of serving as the first African-American female to be elected from the 3rd Ward, the first African-American female to serve as president of this wonderful body. And I come with a background of political science. I have an undergrad degree in poli-sci, women's studies, and African-American studies. My master's work is in management administration. So I've got a myriad of educational background as well as professional background. I have been a college administrator, from a director of admissions all the way through to a PR rep and assistant superintendent for Jackson Public Schools. So I have
Did you grow up here?
I am born and raised in Lansing. I'm a 4th generation Lansingite. My daughter is the 5th. I chose to come back home and build a family here and serve my community through various organizations, and certainly by deciding to run for election the initial time on City Council.
All right, very good. Emily Devendorf.
Yes, so I was actually born in Kalamazoo and came here from Michigan State in '97 and just never left, in part because I went to school for political science and African studies, so we should talk.
Absolutely.
And I ended up working in the legislature before I even left college, and for Representative Lipsey out of Kalamazoo, became quickly the legislative aide and then the policy staffer and chief of staff to another legislator after that. So after about, Representative Caloris, and after about 10 years or so of that, I went on to do what I had always wanted to do, which was to be the lobbyist, the advocate for a statewide LGBT civil rights organization that also works on HIV advocacy, Equality Michigan. And from there it was lobbyist, managing director, executive director, and I just recently, a couple of months ago, decided to step down from that and pursue more of a community focus, because I really do love Lansing and the group of movers and shakers in Lansing that are committed to Lansing, not just now, but 10 years from now. So I'm really impressed with that, and I feel a great investment in what's happening here at home, and I'm excited.
Very good. Mary Ann Prince.
Yes, I was born in Shiawassee County on my grandparents' farm, and then attended school out there in Shiawassee County, and moved into the city of Lansing in 1965. Attended LCC, graduated, received my degree from Philip Gannon in hand, and attended Michigan State for a couple of terms. But after working full-time for the state of Michigan, I decided I wasn't going to throw away a state job for a possible something else. So I retired in '02 from the state of Michigan, State Department of Education, and Community Mental Health. So I've worked a lot. I have been involved in city business. I have ran for office before, obviously unsuccessfully. So I'm hoping this time's a winner.
All right.
And I go to City Hall council meetings. By the way, I have been to every single Monday night City Council meeting for 2 years. And Carol Wood missed just one.
We'll give her a hard time.
She must have been sick, the poor
We'll give her a
woman.
hard time next week.
Yeah.
She was.
Thank
She
you,
was sick.
Mary Ann. Patricia Spitzley.
I'm Patricia Spitzley. I'm a lifelong resident of the city of Lansing. My mother came to the city of Lansing looking for a better life for me and my sister. And she found that working at the Oldsmobile plant that's right up the street here. And so, we came here, and I've been here ever since. My home is here, my church is here, and I'm the mother of 2 sons. I'm a product of Lansing schools. Graduated from Central Michigan University and also graduated from MSU College of Law. I believe in Lansing. Like everyone here at the table, I choose to live here. It's been a great place to raise my family. I've been on the Parks Board. I've also been on the Airport Board. So I believe in service as well. And I believe, as we all do, I believe that, I can bring a positive force, new ideas, and a fresh perspective to the Lansing City Council, and that's why I'm running.
And what is your occupation?
I am currently the Deputy Redevelopment Director for the Racer Trust.
Very good. Well, I want to start with an issue that if you're elected to City Council, you may have to vote on, which is whether to put the Lansing Board of Water and Light up for sale, which Mayor Bernero has said we need to consider. Patricia Spitzley, let's start with you. Your thoughts on that topic.
I think that as we're looking at, the future of our city, I think that we should look at everything. Having said that, for me, I think that we need to have as much information as possible. And, talking about a sale of such a gem, I think is a bit premature. I think we need to look at some of the recommendations that came out of the community review team from the Lansing Board of Water and Light, and I was a member of that team. I think that we need to look at and maybe bring someone in to look at the Board of Water and Light from top down. Maybe perform an audit and look at it not just financially, but look at how it's run. And then based on those recommendations, have a discussion. So at this point, I think that any talk about that is really premature.
But there should be a study.
I think there's nothing wrong with looking at with all of our assets. I think we should look at our parks. I think we should look at how our city is run. So I don't think there's anything wrong with a review as long as it's done independently.
All right, very good, Mary Ann Princeton.
On the BWL,
Yeah.
no, I don't think we should sell it. I think it belongs to the city and we should keep it to the city. And I don't understand why the mayor would want to sell it when he already has complete control, because he picks the general manager. He picks 8 people that are going to be on the board of commissioners. So what else does he need? He wants an IG at $200,000 a year to the taxpayer, and I say no thanks.
Now, he says he wants to consider selling it because of the city's long-term debt. Isn't whether it should be sold or not is a separate issue, but doesn't something need to be done about that?
The city's long-term debt.
And if something does need to be done about it, what should the mayor do? He says we're in line to go bankrupt.
I guess I don't really buy that line. Thank you.
Emily Devendorf, should we consider selling it?
I do think, luckily, the possibility of having to actually execute our decision on that is a bit far off, and that's great news because, like Patricia, I think that we do need to do a lot of research into whether that would be the best move. It is one of our greatest assets. It's an asset that most cities don't have. We're not quite sure yet what would happen to our utility rates were we to let it become privatized. And while we do know that it would take care of a large percent of that debt, we don't know yet if we can find ways to fill that hole by cutting unnecessary spending, doing a really great inventory of the rest of our budget and the decisions the City Council has been making so far. So all of the time that we have until that decision has to ultimately be made needs to be used wisely to figure out whether that would be absolutely necessary.
Hey, Lynn, you've been struggling with the budget for 8 years. Most of that time was not fun.
Absolutely not.
And do you think the mayor is off base suggesting we consider it?
Absolutely not. I think that he has a purview that has a wider scope and depth than maybe those that would be looking from it myopically versus saying, okay, we have legacy cost. We also have a pilot that's in place that is a payment in lieu of taxes for BWL, which reduces the amount that we actually get in from them. We also have a reoccurring situation where it is repeatedly mismanaged. And how do we get at any of those issues if we don't take a systemic look at what are we doing with this gem that we would all call it, this public utility that we believe everyone should be involved in making sure that it is either sustained or it is disposed of in a manner in which we all have buy-in, we all have input, but the accountability, the transparency and the communication that is coming between right now BWL and the city of Lansing at best is bent and at worst is absolutely broken. And there has to be something done about that. We've had the financial health team step in and say, this is a recommendation. Look at everything. Don't leave no stone unturned. And we need to start taking that position that we take a comprehensive look at what we're doing and spending time bringing the health team, financial health team in, and Dr. Eric Scrizzoni from MSU, and having trainings for city council. That was the start of, we need a broader discussion. We need a bigger level of interaction between administration and the city council to have these discussions. And I think this opens the door for that across the board, that it is a cooperative effort versus an exclusive effort where it's being done and then handed off to council.
Now, the mayor has emphasized the fiscal reason for considering it, but he is also open about, BWL may be unmanageable for the city government. And now city council is going through this challenging effort with Commissioner McLeod, whether to renew him or not. Does the mayor have a point that perhaps something as big as BWL really can't be managed by the city of Lansing?
Well, I believe at this point that it can't be managed using the systems that we have in place, that we have some institutionalized processes that don't work. We have a process where we are approving a board member or commissioners for BWL, and until recently when we had two that I held when I was president and said, we're not putting these through until we decide if the vote's going to come back from the people that says we do or do not want outside non-voting representation from other municipalities. We didn't want to answer that question before we even got to where we put renewed individuals' time on the board. So we have to put a system in place that actually doesn't put the cart before the horse. So we're not doing that presently, and that would make it not manageable. So when the mayor says it's not manageable, I believe that is a partially true statement, but it goes back to because we don't have systems in place. Currently, Mr. McLeod, even if we deny his reappointment, will continue to serve on that board until the mayor recommends someone new. That's a broken system.
Emily, do you think it's a broken system?
I do. I actually think that that's a great point, that I don't necessarily think that it's unmanageable indefinitely. I think that we need a better way to hold people accountable and make sure that it is an efficient system. And right now, the mayor may be correct, and that the way the city is running currently, that it's not sustainable. But to me, that means keep your best asset and find a way to make it work.
All right.
Operate responsible
Mary Ann
government.
Prince, do you think the mayor's got a point that it's an unmanageable entity?
I don't know whether I should comment on the mayor's ideas or not.
Feel free.
I think we should keep Board of Water and Lights. I think it's important. It may need some outside person, auditor, but to check on the files and see how things are going, to talk to the people that work for BWL.
Okay, Patricia Spitzley.
Well, I think the recurring theme here is communication. And I think that has been a large barrier. Do I think it's not manageable currently? I think that it needs a lot of improvement. The fact that there's no mechanism for the removal of a commissioner who may or may not be doing their job, and I don't know because I'm not on the commission. I'm not on the council right now, and I don't have that information. But the fact that there's no mechanism to remove a commissioner is problematic, I believe. So in that sense, I do think that that's a managerial issue. But I do not think it should be, a hasty decision to decide to sell. We do have some weighty financial issues and concerns with the unfunded pension liability. But, my question then is, if you sell it and you get a block of money today, what happens next year and the year after that and the year after that when that revenue stream is not there? And so we have to look at the whole picture. But the fact that you cannot remove a commissioner, that's a concern for me.
All right, that's a good point. Let's turn to another topic. A citizens group recently tried to get on the November ballot a proposal that, among other things, would provide public financing for candidates such as yourselves, and also would regulate lobbying to a greater extent. And Patricia, I'd like to ask you about both of those. Do you think there should be public financing? It's not going to happen in November, but what do you think about that?
I have concerns. First, let me back up. The city attorney has said that proposal had some serious legal challenges, right. and my first read of it, I wholeheartedly agree. She does a wonderful job. But the other concern I have is, the first one is the lobbying. Now, from what I understand, you read the language, if someone puts a dollar amount, and I thought it was $900 towards any type of initiative, they have to register as a lobbyist. So if my 82, 83-year-old dad, I just probably messed up his age and I'm going to hear about it. If he decided he was very bullish on an issue and wanted to spend $900, he has to register as a lobbyist. I think that's a bit heavy-handed.
Well, what about, though, this their complaint that there's a revolving door at City Hall, that people work fairly high up in a department and then leave and go to work for people that they were just dealing with?
I haven't seen that.
Yeah.
I haven't seen that. I mean, you see it on the legislative side.
Correct.
But I've never seen that on the city government side. So if there's an example, I would love to see it, but I haven't seen that. So finally, the other thing on the reimbursement, that's problematic again. As a city government who's facing financial challenges every year and trying to balance a budget, how do we pay for something like that? And is that something where we want to prioritize and put our scarce, public dollars, city dollars towards? I would prefer it to be put towards our parks and our community policing, versus reimbursing someone who's exercising their own free choice to support a candidate. And then I have privacy issues. Then does that become public information? Does that become a foiable document? Yep. Those are my concerns.
But it is anyway. It's all reported under election law. Let me move on to Mary Ann, and let me ask you, in addition to the question I already posed, whether this $25, for example, would make any difference to a less known candidate like yourself.
Excuse me?
Well,
I ran against Dave Hollister the very first time, so don't call me less known.
Okay.
Got it?
That's the first start.
I don't take money from anybody, any privatized people, and I certainly wouldn't take any tax dollars. That's disgusting. I wouldn't even consider that. I pay for my own campaign myself, or I don't run it. Simple.
Okay. Well, let me add to that, and the concern that some of the people behind this proposal have expressed, and we're going to see this in August, which is terrible turnout for our elections.
True.
People get elected by
Very
a handful
true.
of people, and they say something needs to be done to encourage more people to go to the polls, and they thought this would be a way to do it, to get them more involved
The problem is, sir, the general public just plain don't care.
Yeah.
You got 86,300 plus registered voters in the city of Lansing, and less than 17% showed up 2 years ago to vote. And the mayor thinks, wow, I got in. You got a little over 9,000 votes out of 86,000 registered voters. I don't call that anywhere exciting, landslide or whatever you want to call it. How we get more people out to the polls? An excellent question. Other than standing up on camera and saying, please go vote, I'm not sure how you can. Maybe when the situation in the city gets dire enough, which I don't think it's at that level, people will say, now it's time we go and we do something. We vote for who we want or we don't want, you know. But
obviously, as the city attorney pointed out, and as I think the group behind this proposal would agree,
Realized,
there are legal
yeah.
problems, and they gave up very quickly on this. But the general issues remain. One is voter involvement, and if that's not the way to do it, what is the way to do it?
Yeah, I think you're actually hitting on some very real voter apathy. And part of the way that you combat voter apathy is to make sure that they know that their vote means something and could make a difference. And that only happens in greater numbers and when they can fully support the person that they feel will best represent them in a leadership elected position. So I do think that proposal was great, and the way that we should be, the direction we should be going, and that the candidates with the most money should not be in the position to have the greatest name recognition, should not be in a position to be able to win just because they have been able to send more mailings. Everybody should have an equal crack at letting people have the option of choosing their representative in elected office. And currently, that's not the way it is, because a grassroots candidate can't get as much funding as a candidate that comes from the corporate sector and what can take all kinds of money from lobbyists that have been working with them for a while. So I was in support of the foundation principle of that proposal, and I would certainly like to see that workable. My concern was just, where does the money come from for that reimbursement? And that is another example of how, if we did more homework before we threw that proposal out there, perhaps we could have found a solution. And I think we should still be talking about a proposal like that in order to make sure that we have fair campaigns on all sides. But we need to make sure that we're really evaluating whether we can afford it.
Now, we've heard from three underdogs. What do you say?
Well, actually coming in, I was that grassroots candidate running against an incumbent and not sponsored or endorsed by anyone. Yeah. However, my take on it is, then you go out and you work your tail off to raise awareness, to highlight the issues, to stand on and ask for the money. And a lot of times individuals aren't as comfortable with that component of being in a campaign. And as Mariana said, is she pays her own way. She made that commitment of, I'm going to do this because I'm committed to it. Well, others may have to say, I'm going to do this because I'm committed to it, meaning I'm going to pick up the phone. I'm going to ask someone for a campaign donation. Now, if it's a corporate, certainly sponsored candidate, of course, that's going to give an undue advantage. I understand that. But I think the way this was written was in a vacuum and did not look for how it would affect the city that they were targeting. They didn't look at our ethics, our right now standards from our ethics board that we have to adhere to anyway, one. And two, they never, at the time, I believe, when they were crafting this, I was the chair of Ways and Means, which had put, which is the arm of City Council that deals with our budget. I could have told them, here are your struggles with looking to take $300,000 to $1 million out of the city budget. Here are some of the roadblocks that you're going to hit. But that type of, again, cooperative research and doing, I am big on systems and protocol and doing your homework beforehand, didn't happen, and we saw the outcome of that. I would like to see them back up, rework it, and invite and engage others to get involved and see if we can't come up with a hybrid of what their desires are and what can actually practically be done by the dollars that we have to try and accommodate their desires. And I think that would be a good blend of getting to a win-win for what they're trying to accomplish. I just think that didn't happen, and that's why we had some of the legal issues that we had, as well as some of the individuals that really, really were not in support of it.
All right. Did you look like you might have something more to say on this?
No.
No? Okay. I want to move on. This may seem like an off-the-wall question given what you're running for, but Mayor Bernero has indicated at least he would like to see Lansing be a leader in this movement toward legalizing marijuana, not just medical marijuana, but recreational use of it. Aylin, let's start with you.
Let's start with Aylin. Aylin actually helped to write the first city ordinance for medical marijuana when we began to see the dispensaries pop up and started to have some belief that we were going to have some autonomy within our municipality to make some of those decisions. And legalizing it and or saying we will allow there to be dispensaries, we will allow there to be grow houses, we will allow there to be all number of levels of supply and medibles and all of the other things that come with that is going to take, first of all, us not putting ourselves as a city in a position that then we're flying in the face of all of the federal laws that currently exist that don't give us the authority to do that. We have been watching this in several of our committees on city council because there are still some, I think, hurt feelings or a bit of anger towards the fact that we did spend 2 years writing an ordinance and putting permits and fees in place and a scale with the city attorney.
Let me interrupt.
And it got all thrown
We're
out.
running out of time, but for or against legalizing it?
I am for looking at it.
Okay,
Absolutely.
for looking at it.
For
Emily,
looking
for
at
or
it.
against legalizing it? And
I'm
why?
for looking at it, and I think that what we've seen with controlled and uncontrolled substances in the past is that when we aren't regulating a substance, then not only is the city and the community not benefiting from the revenue that can come in from that, but also it creates a more dangerous situation for our communities in that people will be trying to get that substance anyway. The best way to make sure that we are taking care of people's health and their safety is to make sure that we have some structure around the distribution of such substances.
So you're
I
open to
agree.
legalizing, just
Yes.
how it should be done. Marianne?
No, I'm not. I'm not for legalizing marijuana.
Why is
Because we don't understand what it does to the human brain. And I got it straight out of a medical examiner from Phoenix, Arizona, a doctor that said they bring in a body, he put it on the slab, he cuts the skull open, and he can immediately tell, not knowing anything about the person, whether they're a marijuana user. I was told that in person. I said, that's amazing. This was probably 30 years ago.
All right.
So he
we
knew
just
that.
have about 30 seconds.
Well, the fact is that there are studies that show the benefits of medical marijuana for a variety of health issues. And so for us to blanketly shut the door, I think it would be
But what
not
about
a good-
legalizing recreational use? That's what's going to be at issue next year.
I am for looking at making sure that the medical marijuana sites here in Lansing, as Aylin said, are licensed appropriately and safely.
Right, but what about recreational? That's going to be on the ballot probably statewide next year. Are you for or against
Well,
it?
I'm not quite sure it's going to be on the ballot in a couple of years. I think we have a long way to go, and I don't know. So,
Okay.
and I'm okay with saying I don't know.
That's fine. And on that note, and it's refreshing to hear a candidate for office saying, I don't know, I want to thank all of you, Aylin Bowles and Emily Devendorf, Mary Ann Prince, and Patricia Spitzley. We'll be back next week with the other 4 candidates for City Council. Have a great weekend.
Thank you.
Thank you, Beryl.
Thank you.